picture this. Your alarm goes off at like 6 a.m.
Oh, the absolute worst time.
Right. It is pitch black outside. The floor is freezing, and you are wrapped in this cocoon of warm, heavy blankets.
Sounds amazing. I'm already asleep.
But the night before, you were so intensely motivated. I mean, you promised yourself with absolute unwavering certainty that today was the day you would finally start jogging.
Oh, yeah. We've all been there.
You even laid your shoes out right next to the door. But now, as you lie in bed in the dark, this literal physical wave of dread, it just washes over your entire body.
Yep, the reality sets in.
And your hand instinctively shoots out from under the covers and just smacks the snooze button. You sink back into the pillows, feeling this immediate rushing mix of relief, but it's quickly followed by a heavy dose of guilt.
It's basically a morning ritual of self-sabotage.
Exactly. So let's unpack this today. Why does your own body actively fight against the goals you set for yourself? Welcome to The Missing Lessons, where we explain what school never did.
It really is the ultimate human paradox.
Yeah.
You have this conscious desire to grow or to improve, to completely reinvent your life. But the second you try to take action, your biology basically screams at you to stay exactly where you are.
It does. And this deep dive is entirely focused on uncovering the biological mechanisms behind that resistance. Because especially in your teens and 20s, life is pretty much a relentless crash course in change.
Oh, totally. Everything is up in the air.
Yeah, friendships fade out naturally,
Yeah.
career paths zigzag in these directions you never anticipated, and your very identity is just constantly shifting beneath your feet.
It can feel completely overwhelming, like you're always trying to catch your balance on a moving ship.
That's a great way to put it. But understanding the physical, neurological reasons why your brain actively hates change, that is the ultimate cheat code. It is how you navigate these chaotic years without feeling like you're constantly, failing yourself.
If you're enjoying The Missing Lessons, make sure to follow the podcast, leave a rating, and share it with someone who might find it interesting. It helps us create more episodes and reach more curious minds.
So to really understand this, we need to completely redefine how we think about the brain's main purpose. Because we like to imagine that the brain is this high-minded tool designed to make us happy or fulfilled or wildly successful.
Right, like it's a life coach living in our skull.
Exactly. But it isn't. The brain's primary evolutionary job is simply to keep you alive until tomorrow, and to do so using the absolute least amount of energy possible.
Wait, so being lazy and sticking to routines is actually like an evolutionary survival tactic,
Yeah.
not a character flaw?
Yes, it's what we call the energy conservation paradox. Because, the brain is a massive energy drain on the body.
It really is. It's what, only about 2% of your total body weight?
Yeah, just 2%. But it consumes a staggering 20% of your metabolic energy every single day just to keep the lights on. It is an absolute energy hog.
Wow. 20% is wild for something so small.
Right. So over millions of years of evolution, the brain had to develop a survival workaround to stop you from literally starving to death just by thinking too hard.
That's insane to think about. So how does it do that?
It built an internal autopilot system. It's managed by this structure deep inside the brain called the basal ganglia.
Okay, so the basal ganglia is kind of like low power mode on your smartphone.
Oh, that's a perfect analogy, yes. When your phone's battery is hovering at 1% and goes into low power mode, it dims the screen, it stops refreshing background apps, and it only runs the bare essentials.
Right, just so the device doesn't die on you.
Exactly. And those bare essentials for your brain are your habits and your routines. Because when you do something over and over again, your brain creates this highly efficient physical pathway.
Basically, the rule of neurons that fire together wire together.
Spot on. An ingrained habit is like a smoothly paved, multi-lane highway. Your brain can drive down that highway at 90 miles an hour while completely asleep at the wheel, burning almost zero extra energy.
Have you ever, driven all the way home or walked to class and suddenly realized you don't remember the journey at all?
All the time. It's actually a little scary.
That's your basal ganglia saving energy. Just think about what you would do if you had to consciously think about every single step or every turn of the steering wheel. You'd be exhausted.
You'd need a nap by 10 a.m. So, sticking to the smartphone analogy here, if my basal ganglia is low power mode, what happens when I decide I want to change a habit?
Like deciding to wake up at 6 a.m. to go for a run in the freezing cold.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, When you try to do something entirely new, you can't use the basal ganglia anymore. You're forcing the brain to wake up the prefrontal cortex.
Right, which is the conscious, logical,
Oh,
decision-making center sitting right behind your forehead.
yes. And the prefrontal cortex requires massive amounts of glucose and oxygen to function.
So trying to change a habit is it's like trying to open a heavy, high-definition 3D gaming app while my phone is on 1% battery.
Yes. Your brain immediately detects this massive battery drain, panics, and tries to force close the app to protect the system.
Wow. So it actively tries to shut down your new behavior and push you right back onto the paved, low-energy highway of your old habits.
Exactly. That physical wave of dread you feel in the morning, that isn't you being lazy. It is your brain running a highly efficient biological program designed to save your life by conserving energy.
Okay, so the brain wants to conserve energy and change drains the battery. I get that part. But how does the brain actually stop me from making the change?
What do you mean?
Well, when my alarm goes off, I don't consciously feel tired in a metabolic sense, I feel anxious, I feel actual dread. How is the brain executing this shutdown?
It uses the most powerful tool it has, which is fear. It literally translates the concept of the unknown into a physical biological threat.
A threat, like a predator.
Pretty much. You have to look at the brain as a sophisticated prediction machine. Its primary method for keeping you safe is scanning your environment for familiar patterns.
Right, so it always knows what's going to happen next.
Exactly. If action A happens, consequence B will safely follow. Your internal GPS is completely locked in.
But the second I change my routine, I break that pattern.
Precisely. When you introduce a major change, your internal GPS completely fails. The brain can no longer accurately predict the outcome of your day.
And when predictability drops to zero,
The threat-detecting center of your brain, the amygdala, simply hits the panic button. It pumps your body full of stress hormones, treating a new, unpredictable situation exactly the same way a primitive human's brain would treat the sound of a predator in the brush.
wait, I struggle to buy that in every single situation, though.
How so?
I mean, I don't feel panicked when I decide to stay on the couch and order the exact same takeout for the fourth time this week. I don't feel a surge of stress hormones then. I just feel like I'm making a comfortable choice.
Right, but how is the brain hiding this fear from you? Because the brain is a master at rationalizing the comfort zone. It fundamentally operates on this principle that we could call choosing a certain hell over an uncertain heaven.
A certain hell. I like that phrase. Explain that a bit more.
So think about a really terrible situation. Maybe it's a toxic workplace where your boss yells at you, or a draining one-sided relationship, or even just a completely dysfunctional study routine that leaves you exhausted.
Okay, objectively miserable situations.
Right, it is objectively miserable.
Yeah.
But to your brain, it has one massive redeeming quality. It is deeply predictable.
Ah, because you know the names of the streets in this hell.
Exactly. You know exactly what mood your toxic boss will be in. You know exactly how to brace your nervous system for the impact.
I see. So the unknown, even if it promises to be amazing, like a supportive new job or a healthy relationship, it strips away all of your control.
Yes. You don't know the rules of that new environment yet.
Yeah. And to the primitive nervous system, uncontrollability and unpredictability are just always flagged as more dangerous than familiar discomfort.
Always. Your brain would rather you be miserable but safe than happy but vulnerable to the unknown.
That is a staggering realization, and honestly, it explains so much about the behaviors we carry into early adulthood. Let's look at a real-world example of this.
Okay, let's hear it.
We all develop what psychologists call survival scripts or safety behaviors when we are young. So imagine a scenario where you grew up in a household where things were incredibly tense.
Like maybe the adults around you were volatile or unpredictable.
Exactly. As a kid, you learned that the only way to avoid criticism, or to just keep the peace, was to shrink down, stay completely quiet, and agree with everyone. You basically became the wallpaper.
And at age 12, that safety behavior was highly effective. It successfully protected you from conflict. So your basal ganglia paved a massive highway for that behavior.
Right. But flash forward 10 years. Now you are 22 years old. You're sitting in a competitive college seminar, or maybe you're in a boardroom for a major workplace meeting.
And the stakes are totally different.
Completely different. The boss asks for solutions to a problem, and you have a genuinely brilliant idea. But the absolute second you think about raising your hand to speak, your chest tightens.
Your throat closes up, you start sweating.
Yes. Your brain is screaming at you to stay quiet. Because you are running glitchy, outdated software on a brand new device, the reality of your life has changed.
Staying quiet doesn't protect you anymore.
No, it is actively sabotaging your career and your growth at this point.
But the thing is, the amygdala doesn't know you are 22. It doesn't care about your career trajectory.
Right, it's just trying to protect the 12-year-old version of you using the only script it knows actually works.
Speaking up is the unpredictable unknown.
Yeah.
Staying quiet is the certain hell it knows exactly how to survive.
It is deeply protective, even when it is literally ruining your life. So if our biology views change as a literal predator, what specific invisible brakes does the brain throw up in our daily lives to keep us locked in this certain hell?
Well, it relies on a series of cognitive biases. These are basically mental shortcuts the brain uses to process information quickly,
Yeah.
but they heavily tilt the scales in favor of never changing.
Okay, let's go through them. What's the first one?
The first is status quo bias. This is our deep, entirely irrational preference for the current state of affairs to remain exactly as they are, even if a change would yield a mathematically better outcome.
Oh, this is exactly why people stick with a terrible bank that charges them ridiculous fees, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
Huh.
Just because the idea of moving their direct deposits to a new bank feels like climbing a mountain.
Right, the perceived effort of the change just heavily outweighs the logical benefit. What's the second break?
The second invisible break is loss aversion.
Yeah.
In human psychology, the pain of losing something feels roughly twice as intense as the joy of gaining something of equal value.
I see this constantly with sunk costs. I mean, I have friends who stay in miserable romantic relationships for years.
And when you ask them why they don't just leave, what do they say?
They almost always say, but we've been together for 3 years. They aren't looking at the next 30 years of happiness they could gain by leaving.
No, they are utterly paralyzed by the idea of losing the 3 years they already invested.
Exactly. The loss aversion just blinds them to the gain.
That is the perfect example of loss aversion intersecting with the sunk cost fallacy. And the final major break is confirmation bias.
Okay, how does that one work when it comes to change?
So, when your amygdala is terrified of a potential change, your brain acts like a highly selective bouncer at a club.
A bouncer. That's funny.
Yeah, it only lets in information that proves your fear is justified, while completely ignoring any evidence that the change might actually succeed.
Oh, I know this one. If you want to start a business but you're scared, your brain will magically notice every single article about startups failing.
Yep, while completely ignoring the thousands of wildly successful ones right in front of you.
But let me push back on this a little bit, because as humans, we possess logic, right?
Sure, mostly.
But what happens when we learn a piece of information that is undeniably true? Like, if I go to therapy or I read a life-changing book and I logically realize my safety behavior is toxic, doesn't my brain just update the file?
You'd think so, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I mean, why doesn't the new truth just overwrite the old bias?
Because the human brain does not function like a computer hard drive.
Oh,
You can't just drag an old corrupted file into the trash and hit empty.
not that simple, huh?
Not at all. The brain rarely deletes old, incorrect information or ingrained habits.
Mm-hmm.
It physically can't just erase the neural pathway. Instead, when you learn something new, the brain builds a brand new memory pathway right alongside the old one.
Wait, so I literally have competing memories fighting for dominance in my head.
Exactly. This is known as the continued influence effect.
Okay, so I have the old, heavily paved, multi-lane highway that says, stay quiet to stay safe, running parallel to a new, fragile dirt path that says, speak up to share your ideas.
That's a perfect visual. And when you are perfectly rested and calm, you might be able to force yourself to walk down that dirt path.
But the second I am stressed, tired, or overwhelmed, which, let's face it, is most of modern life, my brain diverts all traffic back to the paved highway.
Exactly. It simply doesn't have the energy for the dirt path.
That is profound. And, if we zoom out and look at the macro scale, this explains so much more than just our morning running routines or bad relationships.
Oh, for sure. This is exactly why society as a whole is so agonizingly slow to adapt to new realities.
Yeah. It explains why major political shifts take generations to take root. When the economy fluctuates or society goes through a massive technological disruption, the collective human nervous system panics.
Millions of people lose their internal GPS all at once.
Right. And in response, society violently clings to nostalgic ideas, outdated traditions, and just familiar routines as anchors.
The collective brain chooses the certain hell of the past over the unpredictable heaven of progress.
It is biology scaling up into sociology. We are all just seeking predictability.
So this brings us to the most important question, doesn't it?
It does. If I am sitting here on a Tuesday morning and I know my brain is biologically wired to sabotage my growth, how do I actually outsmart it?
Right. If logic doesn't overwrite the hard drive, what actually does?
Well, the single biggest mistake people make is believing they can think their way into a new reality.
You can't just positive affirmation your way out of it.
No, you cannot logically convince your amygdala to calm down.
Yeah.
You cannot think your way into new actions. You must act your way into new thinking. The brain requires repeated physical proof that the new behavior will not kill you.
And how long does that physical proof take to build the new highway?
It takes time. The physical reality of the brain shows that it takes between 2 to 4 months of consistent daily practice to physically weave a robust new neural pathway.
Now, 2 to 4 months.
Yeah, on average, it takes about 66 days. And for highly complex habits, it can take up to 254 days for that new behavior to become your brain's default low energy setting.
I actually love that timeline, to be honest.
Really? Why?
It removes the guilt. It means that when I fail on day 12, I am not a broken person lacking willpower. I am just physically in the middle of a biological construction zone. The asphalt hasn't dried yet.
Oh, that is perfectly said, yes. Willpower is a finite resource. Building these pathways is a permanent structural change.
So how do we bypass the brain's alarm system while that construction is happening?
Right. How do we sneak the materials past the amygdala without triggering the threat response? We can break this down into 4 actionable steps.
Okay, what is step 1?
Step 1 is utilizing microchanges. Do not vow to wake up an hour early and go to the gym for an intense 60-minute workout.
Because to your baseline routine, that is a massive, violent disruption.
Exactly. The amygdala spots it immediately and shuts you down. Instead, your goal should be to do like 10 squats right after you brush your teeth.
10 squats. That's it.
That's it. It is an action so incredibly small and low energy that the brain's threat detection system doesn't even bother to register it. It flies completely under the radar.
Okay, that makes sense. And step 2.
Step 2 is context cues, which is also heavily known as habit stacking. You don't want to rely on remembering to do the new habit.
Right, you tie the new behavior to something your basal ganglia is already doing on autopilot.
Precisely. If you want to start a mindfulness habit, don't just tell yourself, I will meditate today. That's too abstract. You say, I will sit in silence for 2 minutes immediately after I pour my morning coffee.
Ah, because pouring the coffee is a deeply ingrained, heavily paved highway.
Yes, you are essentially building an off-ramp from that highway directly into your new habit. The coffee becomes the automatic trigger.
That is brilliant. What's step 3?
Step 3 is where I think most people completely fail.
Yeah.
You have to intentionally reward the dopamine system.
But dopamine isn't just about feeling good, is it?
Not at all. It's the brain's biological save button. It is the chemical of learning and reinforcement. When you experience a spike of dopamine right after an action, it signals your brain to lay down myelin over that specific neural pathway.
Myelin, like insulation for the wires.
Exactly. That myelin makes the signal travel faster and more efficiently the next time.
So it's literally paving the dirt path.
Yes. When you finish those 10 tiny squats, you can't just move on with your day. You need to immediately manufacture a quick reward.
Like eating a piece of chocolate.
I mean, you could, but it could be even simpler. Just putting a giant, highly satisfying red check mark on a physical wall calendar.
Oh, I do love a good check mark.
Right. Your visual cortex sees the completion, the brain releases a hit of dopamine, the pathway gets insulated, and suddenly your biology actually wants to do the squats again tomorrow to get that hit.
Okay, I love that. And what is the final step?
The final step, step 4, is mental rehearsal. This sounds a bit like self-help magic, but it is pure neuroscience.
Huh.
When you close your eyes and vividly, intensely visualize yourself performing the new behavior, imagining the cold air, the feeling of your running shoes, the sound of the pavement, you are actually firing the exact same neurons as if you were physically doing it.
Wait, really? Just imagining the action starts building the pathway?
Yes. Visualization activates the exact same regions in the motor cortex. You are essentially sending the construction crew out to start clearing the dirt path before you even take a physical step outside.
Wow. It makes the actual action require significantly less energy when you finally do it.
Exactly. That is an incredible toolkit for anyone listening. 10 squats, tied to your coffee, marked on a calendar, and visualized the night before.
It really makes it feel manageable. And, you know, a vital mindset shift to wrap around all of this is how we view the physical sensation of discomfort.
Yeah, because we are taught that discomfort is a red flag telling us to stop, right? a sign that something is wrong.
Exactly. But discomfort is just data. It simply means you are stretching the edges of your comfort zone.
Oh, I like that. Discomfort is data.
Yeah. If you stay completely inside your comfort zone for too long, the walls actually start to close in. The zone shrinks. You don't have to step completely out of it and terrify your nervous system. You just have to gently, consistently push on the walls every single day until the room gets bigger.
That is exactly the goal, gradual expansion. So let's bring all of these threads together. Your brain is not a lazy machine trying to ruin your life.
Far from it.
It is a highly efficient, incredibly protective, energy-saving system. It fights change with everything it has because it absolutely hates chaos, and it perceives the unknown as a literal threat to your survival.
It will always rationally prefer a familiar struggle over an unpredictable possibility.
But by understanding that exact mechanism, you can finally stop fighting your own biology. By using microchanges, tying them to heavily paved old habits, aggressively rewarding the tiny wins to trigger dopamine, and giving yourself the grace of a 66-day construction period, you can entirely rewrite your brain software without ever tripping its survival alarms.
Here's a question for you. What is one safety behavior or old routine you developed years ago that you're finally ready to let go of? Let us know your thoughts in the comments.
It's a heavy question, and it definitely takes time to unravel. But before we go, I want to leave you with one final, slightly different angle to ponder.
Oh, what's that?
Well, we just established that human biology requires about 66 to 254 days to physically rewire itself to accept a new normal.
Right?
But look at the world around us. We are entering an era of artificial intelligence and rapid technological disruption where the very fabric of society, the economy, and the workplace is fundamentally changing, like every few weeks.
Oh, wow. That's a huge disconnect.
It really is. If our environment changes faster than our biology is physically capable of adapting, what happens to our collective anxiety? Can our ancient, energy-conserving brains keep up with the pace of the modern world? It's definitely something to think about.
It really is.
If you enjoyed this episode of The Missing Lessons, don't forget to follow the podcast, leave a rating, and share it with a friend. Your support helps us continue exploring the topics school never taught us.